Hello and welcome. I'm Jessica Pack, and I'm really excited about today's conversation. We're joined by Dr. Mary Crowe from the U.S. National Science Foundation Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships, or NSF TIP. This organization is at the forefront of advancing how innovation, research, and workforce development come together to drive real-world impact. Dr. Crowe's work sits at a critical intersection where emerging technologies, regional innovation systems, and talent pipelines all converge. At a moment when the pace of technological change is accelerating, the role of institutions like TIP in shaping inclusive and scalable innovation has never been more important. Today, we'll explore how TIP is thinking about AI in education in its work supporting communities and industries across the country. Dr. Crowe, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm glad that we're doing this over spring break. A lot of the work that we do in the section that I'm in TIP is related to education and workforce development. And so, yeah, keeping teachers and students fresh, knowing that they're off breaking, but we're still working hard, I think is a great way to start the podcast.
To start, let's ground our conversation in your role and organization. For our audience of educators and workforce leaders, could you tell us a little bit about the National Science Foundation and how it supports education, innovation, and workforce development?
Sure, happy to. So broadly, NSF's mission. So NSF's been around for 75 years, and our mission is to promote the progress of science, advance the national health, and prosperity and welfare, and then also secure the national defense. We primarily fill our mission by giving out grants. Most of our functions most of the agency's functions are grant making, and about 25% of the federal support for Americans' colleges and universities is funded through the National Science Foundation. We're super interested and excited to fund basic research that's driven kind of by curiosity and discovery. In addition to funding kind of basic research, we also focus on solutions. And this is where TIP comes into play, because TIP's the first new director at NSF in the past 30 years. And we were specifically created by statute to accelerate the ideas from the lab to society and to market. And so we're looking to make investments that are going to help transition basic research into broad impacts. So we have three missions within the TIP Directorate, which is the accelerate the advancement of critical and emerging technologies, expand the geography of American innovation. So make sure that Americans across all of our great land are able to contribute. And then third pillar is to train a competition-ready workforce. And I think that's what we're going to be talking about today.
You're involved in several programs and initiatives at NSF. Could you walk us through the scope of that work, what these programs are designed to do, who they serve, and how they contribute to advancing STEM education and participation nationwide?
So yeah, I'm going to talk about two programs that differ in their scale, but hopefully not their impact. So one of the programs is called the NSF Regional Innovation Engines Program. And this program was established to advance kind of transdisciplinary, collaborative, user-inspired translational research and technology development in key technology areas. So these engines are located across the United States, and over 10 years, each engine could receive up to $160 million worth of funding. And that funding is to support the development of regional coalitions of researchers, educators, and companies to conduct research and the development that engages people in the workforce in solutions that are kind of unique to the area. So for example, there is an engine in North Carolina that is focused on the textile industry. And so the state of North Carolina has a rich history in textiles. And what that engine is doing is using advances in technology to change how we recycle fibers, to change how we construct materials, and do all sorts of things related to clothes and carpets and you name it, anything that's a textile. We have an engine in Illinois called the Great Lakes Renew that's focused on water, which makes total sense. It's in the Chicago area, it's right off Lake Michigan. And so the engines, again, are focused on regional kind of economies and things that are strengths in given different areas. Another example of a program that NSF has that's a much different scale than the innovation engines is something that we just announced, and that's called NSF Finders Foundry. And what this does is it supports collaborations between K through 12 educators, technologists, researchers, parents, and or guardians to develop innovation solutions to challenges that teachers or students might have in their classrooms. And what's really cool about this program is that we are asking the teachers and the parents and the guardians and the students to tell us what their problems are. And then we're going to reach out and help pair them with educational researchers and technologists who can design solutions to the problems that they say, this is what our problem is. We think technology could solve it. We don't have the skills to solve it, but we know you do. And so then they all become part of a team and they work together with teachers and parents and guardians with educational researchers and technologists to come up with a solution.
If we zoom in on impact, could you share a few examples of research, education, or capacity building efforts supported through your work that illustrate how NSF is driving innovation in learning and workforce pathways?
Yeah, so another program that I haven't talked about yet is called the Excellent Program, Experiential Learning in Emerging and Novel Technologies. And the goal behind that program is to provide hands-on kind of in situ experiences that are going to allow individuals to gain the skills that they need to enter into an emerging technology workforce. So an example of this is found it's called the Digital Health Force Initiative, and it's a collaboration between K through 12, Rice University, and Houston Methodist Hospital. And in a nutshell, it provides hands-on summer kind of opportunities for high school students and teachers and community college students to learn about either wearables, so like electronic things that people will wear, like watches, things like the data that's being collected, how it's used to help assess somebody's health and their conditions. And in the hospital setting, there are a lot more wearables than maybe you and I might wear every day, right? But how does all of that information get integrated into kind of a bigger overall picture of that patient's health? And then, there's one track where the high school students and the teachers and the community college students can learn about all of those wearables. And then there's another track that that could explore how all of the data is being used to help with diagnoses. And the overarching goal is that by the time they are done with these internships, which are paid, that they have the skills that they could be hired into positions in the hospital setting. Another example comes from a program that we call SBIR, which is our small business programs. And the goal of this example is to use generative AI in a training system for 911 call takers and dispatchers. So, luckily, maybe luckily or not luckily, dispatchers kind of have a typical day. On a typical day, we're going to see these sorts of emergencies come into 911. And when people are first being trained to take down information, they go through a training period, but it takes a long time for a coach or an individual to record the call, go through the call, and look to see, did they collect the information in the order that is most beneficial for the responders? And then they go back to the person who's going through the training to talk with them about where they hit everything and where there were mistakes. Well, using generative AI, instead of that process of finding out, did they do this correctly, from taking anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, it can be done within a few seconds, which means that the people who are helping to train the new dispatchers have more time to work one-on-one with the dispatcher. The other really great benefit of the program is that they can do scenario planning, so that the dispatchers on a typical day, if they get something that's really out there, they might have gone through that training. And by using AI, they can run those simulations at a much higher rate than if they didn't use AI.
Well, since we're already kind of on the topic of artificial intelligence, how is AI shaping the work within the Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships, particularly when it comes to education and workforce development?
Yeah, when we think about AI, we're interested in helping individuals to adapt and thrive, right? And so there are some ethical, there are technical, there are, I guess, analytical kind of capacities that people need to build in order to effectively use and have AI aid in our day-to-day lives. And so there are kind of two aspects that we talk about in TIP as being kind of central to this. One is getting hands-on experience to develop that talent. And number two, translating and scaling these AI-based innovations that can influence student and worker training. So TIP developed a new program called AI Ready America, and it has other federal partners. It has the Department of Agricultural, National Institute of Food, NIFA, the Department of Labor, and the Small Business Administrations all coming together to establish what are called AI-ready coordination hubs across the United States and into all of our territories. And both this and the Finder's Foundry was informed by the White House AI Action Plan. And what it is it's these hubs are going to talk about bringing high quality, peer-reviewed materials, workforce materials, educational materials across the United States into all the geographical areas in which they're needed. So there are three things. We're expanding AI literacy and applied skills. These hubs are going to help equip small businesses and local governments with the tools and technology support that they need to adopt AI. And then they're going to help build those hands-on learning pathways, including internships, project-based learning, that help to translate all the AI skills that workers and students are learning into real-world applications.
A lot of the AI conversation focuses on K-12 or traditional higher education, but TIP has a strong emphasis on upskilling and reskilling. What shifts should community colleges and adult learning providers be making to better prepare learners for an AI-driven economy?
So I think broadly, we're looking for the best practices and innovations on these kind of front lines, right? The community colleges and K through 12 partners, as well as researchers. And one of the kind of most exciting parts of my job is that we're not taking prescriptive kind of positions about what a community should or shouldn't do, but rather what we're interested in, especially in TIP, is saying within this local community, here is what the community has identified as issues or problems or gaps or barriers that we need to overcome to make sure that everybody is able to participate in this kind of innovative economy. And so we're interested in having communities bring together adult learning providers, researchers, startup, think tanks, philanthropy, all within their system to say, in this local area, here's where we need some help. So to give you an example of a couple things that we have recently funded, we know that natural resource managers, for example, people who manage kind of timber and even grasslands and things like that, are now being asked to do things in their job and use technologies that didn't even exist maybe when they started, i.e. kind of autonomous vehicles. So either drones or even those submersibles, right? And a lot of the drones and other types of autonomous vehicles have sensors on them that are collecting data. And so we have a program that's funded through we have a project funded through the Excellent program that is bringing upskilling and reskilling current technicians on how to use drones and how to interpret the data that's being collected from those drones. We have another project where individuals who work in an in a manufacturing facility in Ohio are partnering with the University of Cincinnati to learn about advanced manufacturing techniques and skills so that they can then apply those back at the factory and understand how new composites are improving the manufacturing practice and how to monitor the quality of that. And so there are lots of examples of people who have started their job and AI wasn't around. And so we know that AI, machine learning, and autonomy, they're becoming foundational across many different sectors. So I mentioned manufacturing earlier. I talked about a healthcare project that we were doing, logistics, defense. We know that cybersecurity and data systems are also cross-cutting across all of these. And so what we're interested in doing is providing the opportunities for individuals to learn those skills so that they can remain competitive in their job and also get promoted, right? So it's not just about entering into emerging technology fields, but allowing individuals to upskill and reskill so that they can continue to, live in their community and support their families without necessarily feeling like they got left behind.
NSF TIP recently released its workforce development roadmap for critical and emerging technologies. For educators and system leaders listening today, what are the most important takeaways or calls to action from that roadmap?
I'm so glad you asked about the roadmap because it's near and dear to my heart, right? Myself and my team helped put together that. And, that was a lot of work. It was a lot of listening to stakeholders. It was, reading different reports and trying to get an understanding of where we're at as a nation. And so our roadmap is designed to be kind of like an actionable plan or an actionable agenda to address some of the urgent needs that we have for skilled workers in critical and emerging technologies. So we want to provide opportunities for all Americans to join this workforce by fostering cross-sector collaborations and partnerships. I mentioned this before, we're interested in creating community-specific solutions. We know that what plays in Peoria isn't going to play in Greenville, South Carolina, right? And we also want to leverage existing capacities to expand those experiential learning and training pathways because we know hands-on is so important. And so our workforce roadmap talks about stackable credits and certificate programs, and again, internships and Saturday programs at employers where people can learn how machinery works or what that environment looks like, right? We also want to make sure, though, that we recognize that the talent ecosystem that we're talking about has many different layers of expertise. So there are entry-level technicians, but there are also PhDs and master's students. There are mid-level technicians. There are equipment and process operators. All of these people are important. All of their roles are important in terms of making sure that we have the talent to meet the needs of our nation. And so we are interested in hearing from a wide variety of partners. So if you haven't responded to our RFI, it's still out there. You can still submit a response to this, whether you're a community college, whether you're a business, whether you're a small business, large business, startup, or even something else. We would love for you to respond and give us your ideas about what we're planning to do with respect to our roadmap. We know it's critical for us to scale up and invest and educational technologies that are going to help more people learn the skills so that we can have a competitive ecosystem and that we're able to help upskill and reskill people in the time fashion that they need for them and their local economies to be successful.
Finally, as educators and leaders navigate rapid change, what's one piece of advice you would offer for approaching AI thoughtfully and effectively in education and workforce development?
So I think I mentioned this before, is that we need to partner with AI, right? Not to just use it, but to help with the guiding the development of it. It's a tool. It's a tool like many other tools that have come along in our history in terms of, today's workforce. We also need to understand its limitations. And remember that AI isn't just large language models. There are vision language models that help to take images to text. There are models that are helping enable robots to automate tasks, those mundane tasks, those repetitive tasks that maybe don't intellectually get us super excited about waking up and going to our job every day. And so the adoption of AI to help with respect to some of those tasks is providing new opportunities and new roles within companies. And so I think of it as our partner that's going to help us free up our problem solving ability, our ability to reflect, to think about, like, if this is the ecosystem I'm working in, and I think that that machine over there should be put over here. So like, I keep thinking about somebody having to walk multiple, X number of steps because they have to go and pick this up and walk back to here and do this and do that. Is there a way for that person to have AI take over some of those tasks so that they can think about, well, how could we rearrange the equipment in the sequence to be more efficient or to make my job easier or for me not to have to walk as far to do what it is I need to do?
Well, thank you again for joining us today, Dr. Crowe. We so appreciate your time and expertise. I know listeners will have a lot to think about after listening to today's conversation. Are there any specific resources or social media channels that you'd like to direct listeners toward?
So I think the best way if people want to connect with NSF and if they want to connect with us in the TIP Directorate, if they go to if they Google National Science Foundation TIP, TIP, there are forums within TIP that are about getting on our mailing list. Our email addresses are all listed there. I can't speak to our social media. That's kind of like out of my expertise area. So they can follow us on Instagram. They can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter and things like that. But I'm not the person that can tell you exactly how they get signed up for that.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to keeping an eye on what other incredible things we can learn from TIP.